Happening now on Grid Tonight, IndyCar is going to the nation's capital. Will the new street race in Washington, D.C. be a hit despite the controversy surrounding it? The Charlotte Roval is gone with a return to the Oval in the fall. Will we see the Roval return someday? Tim Cindric is back with Team Penske after last year's qualifying drama. What type of message does this send to the entire IndyCar paddock? Hello to all of our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Cubby Lambert. With me are Joshua Birch from JB Motorsports and Joe Samniego. And before we get started, I apologize that we couldn't be on the air last week, but due to all the snow and ice in the Carolinas within the last week, then a really big snowstorm that hit the Piedmont Triad, our show would have clashed with the Cookout Clash, so we couldn't be on the air during that time because we all know you'd be on Fox watching the Cookout Clash at Bowman Gray Stadium and not watching us on the air. So out of the best interest, we decided to postpone the show an entire week. So you'll be getting all of the news from last week and this week all in one. So grab a popcorn, your favorite drink, sit back and enjoy tonight's show. And also at the end of the show, we're planning to announce a brand new program here at Grid Network. Really excited to see that debut early next week. And throughout the show, leave your comments and questions in the chat for us to display, and visit gridnetworktv.com for our latest content. Now here's Josh with our top story this evening.
Thank you. Evening, Kobe. Hello, Joe. Nice to see you. And I must apologise if my voice is not up to scratch. I've done 9 hours of the Formula One preseason testing today, so it's not quite as tuned in. And you can sort of blame me if you want, guys, for last week because I was commentating on the Cookout Clash, so blame me for that. But let's get straight into the news. And it's some big news we've got to catch up on. First up, the 2026 NTT IndyCar Series schedule will expand to 18 races, with plans to host a street race in the United States capital city of Washington, D.C. Now, in honor of America's 250th anniversary on August the 23rd, the Freedom 250 Grand Prix is set to take place throughout the streets in the District of Columbia and the National Mall. Now, US President Donald Trump signed an executive order in the Oval Office for the White House Task Force, the US Department of Transport, US Department of the Interior, and Washington's DC Executive Office of the Mayor to work together to plan this event. Now, the street race is expected to be free to the general public and include vantage points of several majestic symbols in the nation's capital. Now, there have been a mixed reaction to this planned IndyCar street race in Washington, D.C. Some have been very happy to see another IndyCar race get added to the schedule and visit a new city. Rahal Lanigan Racing's Graham Rahal noted how sponsorship opportunities have increased since the announcement of this race. However, on the flip side of things, others have been very critical of IndyCar for pushing this race forward with the Trump administration. Now, the Washington, D.C. street race was announced during a time when ICE raids were happening and dividing the country, especially in Minneapolis, with the deaths of Rene Good and Alex Preddy. Now, IndyCar is a very diverse series with drivers and personnel from many different countries, which have been celebrated in the past. However, when you look at the US federal government is doing with these aggressive ICE tactics and radical profiling of many in the Hispanic community, it makes you wonder why IndyCar would want to align themselves with an administration like this, especially when IndyCar's most popular driver is from Mexico in Pato O'Ward. Now, regardless of those concerns, Roger Penske said that this will truly be a memorable event that celebrates America's independence and the legacy of patriotism, innovation, and excellence that powers motorsport across the country. Graphic courtesy of Penske Entertainment. Well, Joe and Kobe are with me to discuss this. Kobe's up first. Kobe, could IndyCar's decision to race on the streets of Washington, D.C. in August backfire?
Well, Josh, I know we've had 2 weeks to prepare for this story, and I'm still struggling to find the words of what I can say without getting myself, into a bit of trouble here. And I'm sure you guys may feel the same way. But yeah, it's a very interesting decision to race in Washington, D.C. And I will admit, when you're looking at different cities around America where you could host a street race. I know a lot of us, would like to see a race in New York City. I know we used to have the New York City Prix and all of that. Yeah, but when I think of those cities, Washington, D.C. was actually, on my list of cities where I would like to see a street race. So I think if you take away, everything that's all the unfortunate things that have been happening, in America lately. I actually do like the idea of racing in Washington D.C. if it's done right. Like if the focus is strictly, on the racing product itself, and then just celebrating America's 250th anniversary, I think that would be perfectly fine if that's the main focus. I want the race to be the focus, and not, a sideshow and something else, being the main focus of this situation. But when this was announced, I think like the timing of the announcement, I think it, really threw a lot of people off because I know a few weeks later now it's kind of cooled down here, in America and also in Minnesota as well, the Minneapolis area. But this came like right after, some of the ice tactics that were going on in Minneapolis, that resulted, in the deaths of the two people you mentioned, Josh. So I think a lot of people felt like it was kind of tone deaf, given what was happening in Minneapolis. And then all of a sudden, right on the heels of, a second person, dying in the city, you have IndyCar announcing this race. And then people, obviously on both sides of the equation, some people were really happy about it going to DC, and I do get the excitement about going to a brand new city, racing in the nation's capital. I'm sure it'll be quite a spectacle if this event is done rightly, but I think people do have legitimate concerns of why this may not be a good idea from an optics perspective, because IndyCar, as you mentioned, Josh, is a very diverse series with a lot of drivers and people in the paddock from many different countries, which I believe, diversity is something that we should celebrate, instead of, criticize or, just not be, what I'm trying to say is not, I guess, I don't know what I'm trying to say. It's just a really complex topic. I'm trying to think of what to say without getting myself into trouble here, but I'll just say if done properly, I think an IndyCar street race in DC will be quite a spectacle and a lot of fun. But I think if it becomes a sideshow and, something else takes priority, it could, be, a decision that could potentially backfire because the IndyCar is fan base. Some of them are not really happy about this decision because they don't want the series to be aligned with I believe a viewpoint that might be considered, that might be considered, not having good morals. Yeah, it's really hard it's really hard for the position I'm in right now to try to talk about this subject, as you can see.
I'm with you, Kobe. I was at a loss of words when it became an official announcement. We knew there was the rumors, and I thought, okay, it started with an AI video. We know this current presidential administration has utilized AI to make some very drastic and at times offensive materials. And I thought this was just going to be nothing but hype, no substance. Just, oh, how could it be? But then when we got the announcement that this is happening, we are racing in Washington, D.C., just a mix of emotions. The first one, obviously, is how often we talk about IndyCar needs to have a little bit of a longer schedule. Okay, we got the 18th race. But at what cost? This looks like it's something where it's going to be the administration and IndyCar working together. This looks like something where it looks like it's going to be, in a way, IndyCar endorsing what this presidential administration is. And I could safely say I think there's a lot of people that feel very conflicted. We want what's best for IndyCar. We love IndyCar. We love to see more success. If this event becomes a mess, becomes a spectacle of grand mistakes, and we just talk about this was a big mistake, a big flop, which some people would consider the Thermal Club event, it's not going to make IndyCar look good. People are going to see IndyCar as, oh, they associated themselves with President Trump. We already know just how this past Sunday we had the big game. People associated another halftime show with the president. That only got like very few ratings, 5 million, while the Super Bowl had over 100 million. And even the Puppy Bowl had 12 million. So this is very, very much, I think, a situation where IndyCar, if they could pull this off year after year, so we're talking a 2027 Washington, D.C. Grand Prix, a 2028, 29, beyond, when we have different presidential administrations, I would feel better. I think a lot of fans will feel better. But this is just a one and done because Roger Penske and President Trump have a connection. They have a history working together. it's not going to look that great. And I think especially in an election year, it's just something where I feel this has to be done right, but I'm very concerned it may not be handled right. And then we'll be talking about IndyCar making another serious mistake.
I really don't want to get political, but I did say this to you guys in the chat. It's very ironic that the exact time of the announcement was also the exact time that quite a number of files got released. So I'm just saying he has a habit of doing these special things. And for a president, who has said in the past, the president should not overuse the executive orders. He's executive ordered an IndyCar race. Just accept that from a Brit's point of view, that is insane. That is the definition of I want to play with my cars. I'm going to write a note to the teacher saying that I can play with my cars during lesson. It's ridiculous. It's so stupid.
It is, and that's one of the things that I think this wasn't IndyCar working with Washington, D.C.'s mayor, the council there. Now, granted, D.C. has a very unique situation with Congress having to prove a lot of their stuff. This is an executive decision. There's probably some fans out there like, why don't you make an executive decision, have IndyCar run the Michigan 500 at Michigan International Speedway again? That would be a popular move.
Oh, yeah, and Joe, before this became official, I was reading some of the websites that are traditional in the political world. I think I was reading punchbowlnews.com, and because I think they were one of the first ones to report this, and the reason why President Trump decided to use an executive order, because otherwise, you would need the votes from Congress to get this done. And with that, and with the executive order, you can bypass that, because also, not to get political here, there were a bunch of Democrats in Congress who did not agree with this race. So there was no way you were going to be able to get the votes you needed to try to get this across the finish line. So in order to bypass some of the opposition, and on that side of the political spectrum, he needed to sign an executive order to get this done. And some people are skeptical that this event is even going to happen, because, trying to have an event like this in Washington, D.C. is going to be, quite difficult, especially the amount of time it takes to build a street to plan a street course and all of that. Like, we haven't even seen the layout of what it looks like yet. Hopefully, it will be a good layout, produce some great racing. But it's definitely going to be a tall task, because we usually see a lot of these new street races, planned months in advance. But, obviously we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe they had a plan going in place, many months ago, and that they finally reached the point where they were able to announce this. And because I remember last summer when we were discussing IndyCar going to Mexico City, they said if Mexico wouldn't work out, what they said a backup would be, they said it would be a street race in Washington, D.C., but then the schedule did not come. Then the schedule came out, and they said that, there's something that could happen in the future. And I do find it very interesting. Like, when you think of Washington, D.C., and all of the people in power there, and the major security risk that it poses, like, especially from a logistics standpoint. So, like, what's so hard that we couldn't go to Mexico City logistically, but do this? Because it seems like it would be, much more complex from a security standpoint, and, going to Mexico City, which I feel like would have been, really, really positive for IndyCar, because we talked about how popular Pato O'Ward is in this series. He's like, he's the most popular driver in the IndyCar series, and if they went to Mexico City, that would have been massive, for him, and also and all his fans. You were seeing the stadium section completely packed for Pato O'Ward, and you seen Josh covering Formula One when Pato does what's become his annual FP1 session in Mexico City. The fans go crazy for Pato, and he's not even a Formula One driver.
It's packed out in the Foro Sol for a practice one session, and there's a notable difference by the time we get to practice two. I mean, this year I think it's going to be quite filled up, because Sergio Perez is back and did quite well today, by the way, in Cadillac. But it's early days for them. So I think it's insane. Anna says, good evening, guys. IMSA has raced in Washington, D.C. in the past. Hopefully IndyCar has a good race. I'm not outside the possibility. Could we see this a possible same layout? I don't know. Anybody know if that's still possible?
I'm not sure, Josh. They haven't said anything about the layout yet. The only thing that I saw at the end of the press release for this, they said there would be a kickoff event for the Freedom 250 Grand Prix, where they were going to announce more information about the race. But they want the National Mall to be, the key part of this, where you see the Washington Monument and racing in front of the Supreme Court and all of that. So they want the National Mall to be to be where the huge chunk of the course is, based on what it said in the press release and all of that.
And of course, probably what's left of the White House. Go on, Jay.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing that I think a lot of people are sort of concerned of. There's all this promise, it's going to be the DC Mall. Well, there's still going to always be tourists coming here to DC to see the Vietnam Memorial for the Vietnam War, the Lincoln Memorial. These things where some people may not want to be looking at these memorials and hear race cars going by, or it's obstructed. We love motorsports. We get it. I mean, the idea of racing at the nation's capital, especially a premier series, because there used to be a sports car, but now IndyCar, if they could pull this off multiple years and show this is a viable event, I think a lot of people are going to have less heartburn compared to how it's shaping up now, where people think this is a political stunt.
Yeah, sometimes IndyCar makes me shake my head as well. I tell you what, it's a perfect segue comment in, because what's surprising me actually is that NASCAR sort of come out against Trump in many respects. Their fans have gone, no, that's too much. NASCAR have done that, and IndyCar have sort of gone, yes, please come in. It's jostling my brain around that they've sort of swapped mentalities. I can't, but it just doesn't make sense. So a question for you guys is, for IndyCar fans who are really upset with the series for the decision, what can they do to earn the trust back of the fans?
This is going to be a hard one for any IndyCar fan, really. Like, I know there's some other channels out there I've been really following because I'm curious to hear their point of views as well, too. There's a lot of folks that, since 2020, have came into motorsports because they saw, especially like you had NASCAR 2020 recognizing what happened to George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, that we have to do better as a sport to recognize racism. Embracing and welcoming the LGBTQA plus community that has brought in new fans. And this presidential administration does not value diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. They do not value a lot of LGBT protections out there. So when you see your series aligning themselves with these people, it hurts. And I just don't know exactly what the answer would be, because we were all in Portland last year when those AI images of ICE showed up with IndyCar and the Speedway Slammer. And in Portland, of course, let's be honest, we all know that's where the Portland Frog came in. The ICE protests, the ICE demonstrations is a very left-leaning town. So you're all here for the weekend, and then you have these, and IndyCar was just mute. They said you didn't organize this or anything, but they didn't condemn it. The most popular star is in a bad spot where he could say something or he didn't say anything, stay silent. So I think this is something where I think thinking to what Jason had said about IndyCar maybe doing stuff where you sort of shake your head, it's like the line should be pretty clear, but I think there's sort of a conflict when it comes to the leadership of IndyCar and the presidential administration, and not wanting to say something to be on the bad side, which I get it, but to the fans that came in, especially since 2020, your newer fans that have value on social issues, they may look elsewhere to other sports. I mean, remember, Formula One is still growing. And if motorsports become something where, okay, we'll go to something else, Super Bowl, over 135 million. They'll love to have even more fans, and we'll just see what they do. But IndyCar is not going to be easy rebuilt, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think IndyCar has quite some work to do to try to rebuild that trust back. With the fans who feel like that, aligning itself with the current administration in power, to bring this street race to Washington D.C. I think they have quite a bit of work to do in this hand, and it's really tough, because like you were saying, Joe, a few years ago, well, several years ago in 2020, when George Floyd was killed, we saw IndyCar and other Racing Series, acknowledging what was happening. And during that time, they were a lot IndyCar and other racing series were being more sympathetic to, some of the social justice issues in this country. And they brought in a lot of fans. I remember people saying, hey, they never watched, NASCAR or IndyCar or Formula One before, but when they were acknowledging all of this going on, it made them feel welcome and all of that. And because of their acknowledgement of what was going on in the country at that time, they brought in a brand new fan base, that was really happy to be here. And now, several years later, it seems like that fan base, that new fan base that they brought in, it seemed like that, I hate to say it this way, but it's like they're throwing them in the trash, right? Because it's like they have to decide, which segment of the fan base we value more, which ones we want to keep around. And I think they decided that the other side, was worth keeping around versus, those who had versus those, who value, something different. And we know, like, looking at some of the different initiatives, around racing. I guess they just did it at the time, because it was trendy. I know IndyCar had this race for equality and change program, which has worked out really well for Miles Rowe, because he's doing really well in the Indy Next Series, has another year in that program this year, and we'll see if he's able to make it into the NTT IndyCar Series in 2027. So that's one thing that has worked. And we all remember we raced this one in Formula One. That was something that was kind of trendy at the time that that's gone away in the last few years. So that was something that didn't really last at for a long time, but it was something that people really resonated with, because a lot of people they truly love diversity. I love diversity, and the thing that I worry about, Josh and Joe, when this IndyCar race in Washington DC comes around, I'm sure it's going to bring a new segment of the audience into this. I wonder if it will be the segment of the audience that doesn't like diversity. And like when they look at these IndyCar series, when you see someone named Pato O'Ward, Alex Palou, Kristen Lundgaard, what are they gonna think? So I'm also worried in that aspect for IndyCar. Like I'm all for bringing in new viewers, but I want the diversity of the IndyCar series to be celebrated. I think diversity everywhere should be celebrated. I don't believe that diversity is something that that needs to be looked at with great shame.
I mean, there's a distinct possibility, isn't there, that from what we understand, Donald Trump is going to be very heavily involved, obviously, to the point where he wants to wave the green flag. We saw in the AI video, he wants to present the trophy. How ironic would it be if he has to present it to Pato O'Ward? I mean, come on. This is going to be a nightmare. I think I can get away with it more being a Brit. I can sort of comment. From history's standpoint, every time a questionable leader has tried to sport wash events, it hasn't really gone well, has it? So if you look back 1936, of course, with the Berlin Olympics, that didn't go very well. You look back to the Russian Grand Prix of Formula One, as I think Kobe mentioned earlier on, that didn't work long earlier, did it? We had Vladimir Putin on the podium presenting it to Lewis Hamilton, and then we had Bernie Ecclestone sort of piling up to him, and then weird shots during the race I didn't like, and now I've just got this weird feeling. I don't know what's worse, seeing Donald Trump on an IndyCar broadcast so often, or Taylor Swift at the Super Bowl. I don't know which is going to be worse in terms of you don't belong here. It's a weird mix of the two. Joe?
I would take Taylor Swift at an IndyCar race any day. I mean, that would bring such positive. I mean, Taylor Swift, Bad Bunny, he's on another level. Those kind of celebrities. But when you have, and it's not even, we see in Formula One when they go to the United States Grand Prix, you have their governor there, Greg Abbott. Yes, he's head of state. Yes, he's presenting a trophy. He's not waving the green flag. This isn't the Greg Abbott Grand Prix, thankfully. It's the Circus of America. But that's the thing, this AI video, Trump's waving the green flag. He's behind his little podium. He's giving the trophy. And it's like, this is the Trump show. And I think that's what a lot of fans don't want.
Yeah, Joe. And the thing is with me, I just want to clarify my position. Is I actually don't hate the idea of having a street race in Washington D.C. I say if done properly, I think it'll be fantastic. If it goes on without a hitch, I think it'll be something we'll be celebrating. With the IndyCar Series if it turns out well. But But like I was saying earlier, my biggest fear is that this is going to become a major sideshow and used as a major political stunt. Yeah, that's my biggest fear, that that the race is not going to be the focus, that the focus is going to be on someone or something else and not the actual race itself. If the focus can remain on the race, I think IndyCar will be fine. But if it becomes a sideshow, then I think IndyCar is going to have some problems on its hand. But I do support an IndyCar race in DC on the streets. I'm not trying to hate on the event or what they had planned, but I'm just concerned about the optics and some of the things that could follow if it goes wrong.
I mean, not to be anything, but I think the race is kind of pointless. I like that we're going to have it, but I don't like it's being called the Freedom 250. What we're going to call it next year? Freedom 251? As well, it's like, it doesn't make sense.
We get the Freedom 100 back.
Yeah, let's have that one. We don't want the 250, we want the 100. Come on. But honestly, just touching on Indianapolis, we've got NASCAR's got the Daytona 500. That's literally qualifying in a few hours' time. Then you've got IndyCar, have got the Indy 500. Surely you make they're the crown jewels of the sport. In America's 250th year, put this more spectacle on that for 250 years. Come on. You don't need to throw in a race. The only thing I like about this is that it is perfect balance. 6 road courses, 6 ovals, 6 street circuits. That I like. The nice balance. I like that. And I agree with you both. If they can make this work and the focus isn't on Trump and we actually go back, then fine. If it's a one and done, then we're just tickling an ego of an Oompa Loompa. Don't like it. Anyway, I presume we're done here. Joe, go from Portland in the frog costume to DC. Yeah, that's another point, actually, as well. You're actually in an airport. Very well done, actually. The Wi-Fi there is amazing, I must admit. You're better airports in the UK, I must admit. Okay, right. Let's get into our second story of the evening then. In a surprising announcement, 3-time NTT IndyCar Series champion Dario Franchitti will make his return to NASCAR for the first time since 2008. Now, Franchitti will compete at a track that he knows very well from his IndyCar days, the inaugural Craftsman's Truck Series race on the streets of St. Pete on February the 28th. Now, this is a doubleheader weekend for the NTT IndyCar Series and the Craftsman's Truck Series. When Dario Franchitti makes his NASCAR return, the effort will be supported by Tricon Garage, Jimmy Johnson, and Legacy Motor Club. Franchitti will drive the number 1 Toyota Tundra with sponsorship from Dollar Tree. Now, in 2008, he decided to make the full-time switch to NASCAR during the open-wheel invasion era and put his IndyCar career on pause to pursue stock car racing, which was short-lived. Franchitti started 2008 off in the Cup and O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, but his NASCAR dreams came to an end after struggling to adapt to stock cars and a lack of funding to continue. Now, the upcoming truck race in St. Pete will be his second career start in the series, as Franchitti made his debut back in 2007 in the Martinsville 4 race. To prepare to go truck racing, Franchitti competed in the Dubai 24-hour endurance race. Now, the deal to run St. Pete with Tricon wouldn't be possible without his close friendship with 7-time Cup Series champion Jimmy Johnson, who he'll be in the same ride on the streets of San Diego. Now, the NASCAR Hall of Famer admitted that this deal only took a day to put together and plans to sit atop the pit box on race day to support his friend. Now, Franchitti also said that the thought of racing a truck on a street circuit was very intriguing to him, with the challenge of the different surface going from the airport to the St. Pete city streets. Graphic courtesy of Tricon Garage. Franchitti is also, don't forget, a 3-time Indianapolis 500 champion, and he's a 4-time IndyCar champion. So going to this street circuit will be like a duck to water. Joe, coming to you on this one. How excited are you to watch Dario Franchitti wrestle a heavy NASCAR truck around the streets of St. Pete?
This is what I think a lot of people were hoping for, seeing some sort of crossover when the announcement made that the Craftsman Truck Series and IndyCar will be sharing St. Petersburg. And this is a very unique track with that long straightaway on the runway. Then you got that twisty, I believe it's turn 3 and 4 before that next straightaway, which leads to the hairpin corner. This is going to be some good racing. It's going to be physical. I think Dario Franchitti, expect a good qualifying. I'm going to say first 2 rows. He could end up with the lead. He could win, but we know, Josh, a lot of times what happens in NASCAR, late caution, restarts, overtime, get bumped out of the way. That's what I think could happen. But if Dario could pull it off and get a win, that would be something else, another feather in his cap where he could say, hey, my IndyCar career, stellar. NASCAR effort, didn't exactly go well. We know Chip Ganassi racing at that time was not exactly at the same kind of level as it was in 2001, 2002. And just the sponsorship did not work where, next thing you know, before we even got to the road courses to see what he could really do, he was sort of out of the picture. So I think this is going to be really exciting. And I think overall, the Truck Series has a lot of momentum. You got Ram, you got a lot of storylines. They're going to have drivers too. This, I think, I'm hopeful this becomes a tradition of St. Petersburg, you got IndyCar, and the Truck Series. Because this is becoming a fun weekend to go cover. And I can't wait to see Dario Franchitti in a truck. I mean, heck, we've seen sometimes drivers make this appearance and they get physical. And that's always fun to see too. So let's see what Dario can do behind the wheel.
100%. I want to get this going because St. Pete in 2 weeks' time is going to be insane. And I know I'm on that Truck Series call because it's actually easier. So that's going to be a lot of fun as well. And also, welcome back, Dario, to racing. He, of course, was forced out after his accident in Houston 2013. Lovely to see him back doing a couple of races. So, for the first time since the Roval was added to the NASCAR Cup Series schedule in 2018, Charlotte Motor Speedway's full race will return to the 1.5-mile oval. Now, as Charlotte's asphalt has aged and produced a great on-track product for the Coca-Cola 600, many fans have had their wishes answered as NASCAR decided that it was time to go back to the oval for the Chase race weekend. Now, the Bank of America Roval 400 will become the Bank of America 400, a 267-lap 400-mile race for the Cup Series. We'll also see the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series and Craftsman's Truck Series compete at the oval as well. So, CEO and president of Speedway Motorsports, Marcus Smith, said that the Roval delivered dramatic racing when many fans were asking for more road courses, but it felt like it was time to bring the full race back to the Charlotte Oval because there's a lot of energy around it, and the graphic courtesy of Charlotte Motor Speedway. Well, 600 plus then 400, 1,000 in total at Charlotte. Bring it on! That is what I say. So, Joe, do you agree that it was time to move back to the Charlotte Oval for the full race? And do you believe the Roval will possibly even return someday?
It is, in my opinion, overdue because since we've had this generation car introduced in NASCAR, we have seen phenomenal racing at Charlotte Motor Speedway. I know there's some people that say it's a little too unpredictable, the Coca-Cola 600. I respectfully disagree. I feel like the Coca-Cola 600 is the longest race of the year. Unfortunately, it has 4 stages, so it's sort of broken up in 4 100-stage segments. So having such cars on the edge, comers and goers, where some cars are coming to the front and some are going to the back, it just makes it where this is a good race. Now, to have a 400-mile race in the fall time, still going to be pretty warm. I mean, we're talking September, October time period where you're going to have this race. If you have a hot day and it's greasy on the track, it's going to be just as crazy as the Coca-Cola 600. And the Coca-Cola 600, remember, it goes into the night where it cools up. You get a little bit more grip. You have a hot day here, this is going to be a barn burner of a race, and it's in the Chase. The playoffs gone, the Chase format's here. I think this will just be a great addition to where you have the Chase, you have the first couple of races, and then this race. This is a race where I think a lot of people will start saying, this is the Chase race you want to go to. This is the Chase race that, besides the Southern 500, is another big-time race. This has been a long-standing tradition in NASCAR to have 2 races at Charlotte Motor Speedway. I get why the Roval was included in the prior generation car. Oval racing was really good. The 1.5 speedways were not exactly the best product. But now that we got a car that is focused on the 1.5 speedways, Charlotte, that surface, at first we were all talking how it was like, it's hardly changed, it's not aging well. Now it's aging like fine wine, and we just love the racing there. We can't get enough of it. So I think this was a good move. I don't know what kind of scenario the Roval will return back, though. The fans that want it, they'll always say, hey, we like to see the Roval again. They like some of the action. But I just feel like the last couple of years, that energy sort of really whined away. Maybe if for some reason we lose another road course or there's a scheduling issue and NASCAR says, hey, we need another race, well, then the Roval could come in. But even then, this is a SMI racetrack. It's not a NASCAR track. So I don't think anybody's going to be sad to see the Roval go away for quite some time. If this race is a sellout in Charlotte during the chase, and we're talking about what a race, Marcus Smith is not going to bring back the Roval unless something drastically changed.
With you on that 100%. I like the fact that we're back on the oval. It should be quite good to actually have a proper 3-stage race, not the 600 that we have on Memorial Day weekend as well. So hopefully it could be good. Okay, so on to our next story. After he was fired following a scandal in Indianapolis 500 qualifying last May, Team Penske has rehired Tim Cindric. Now, we'll see Cindric back at Penske, this time as Scott McLaughlin's strategist. Jonathan Duguid, president of Team Penske's IndyCar program, would be Joseph Newgarden's strategist, while Travis Law will call strategy for David Malukas in his first season with the captain's organization. Now, getting back to Cindric, he makes a shock return to the IndyCar paddock less than a year after losing his job that Duguid now holds. Now, Duguid said that Cindric brings decades of experience to McLaughlin's timing stand and gives his time with the organization before. This will make him a great addition as a strategist, the graphic courtesy there of Team Penske. Scott McLaughlin has posted this coming up as well, saying, Tim Cindric is a huge part of why I was able to make the journey from Australia to the IndyCar Series. We've had a very close relationship for many years, and he's been a tremendous help to my career. I'm so excited to get to work with him in this capacity in 2026. I've wanted to have TC on my stand from the moment I got here. His experience, knowledge, and focus are world-class, and I'm pumped he's joining the hashtag #Thirsty3s. Bring on St. Pete. Well, Kobe, what was the point of firing Tim Cindric last year if he's just coming back like he's never left? In many respects, he's done a Donald Trump.
or I guess you can also say that he got put in timeout for being very bad, and then say, okay, your punishment is up now, so now you can go outside and play with your friends. Yeah, so that's basically what has happened here. And looking at it, specifically from a competition standpoint, there's nobody to bring back to your organization other than Tim Cindric, because he knows what Penske Perfect means. He knows how the captain, runs his program. So it's not like you're bringing in an outsider that has, that's going to have to get up to speed. Tim Cindric been there, done that, been with Team Penske for many, many years. And now he gets to go back to almost the same job he had right before he left. And I do wonder how the rest of the IndyCar paddock feel about this, because I haven't seen any reactions, because I remember after Indianapolis 500 qualifying last year, a lot of people in the IndyCar paddock were very angry at Team Penske, and they wanted Roger Penske to act, that they wanted to see heads roll, to show some form of accountability here for, what had gone wrong in the qualifying there. And this was, on top of a push to pass scandal that had happened, the year before. So a lot of people in the paddock were getting really frustrated with this one organization. And as a result of what happened after Indianapolis 500 qualifying, to prove that he was, prove that he was making serious changes and a part of, accountability, Tim Cindric was one of the employees of Team Penske who were fired from the organization. And it really felt like at the time, the paddock felt good about that, because someone's been held accountable for what's gone wrong at Team Penske. And now all of a sudden, just several months later, not even a full year later, he's back in a position of power at this organization. Obviously, he's not, the president of the IndyCar program anymore, but we've seen stranger things happen. If Team Penske, IndyCar program isn't able to, turn around. I mean, last year it was a rough first half of the year for them. Then they really started to, get back to the Team Penske of old towards the end of the 2025 season. If Team Penske, starts off the year, like they did last season, and, things continue on, to slide downward later in this season, could we potentially see, Jonathan Duguid, lose that title of president of Team Penske's IndyCar program and see Tim Cindric elevated back up to the position where he was at. But it's just, this is the type of stuff you just can't make up, right? That after that 1 year, not less than a year after losing your position due to your involvement in this, in this, qualifying drama at the Indy 500, you're back at the organization that fired you. Honestly, I did not see this coming. I thought, if he returned to racing, he would probably be with another organization, but it's quite something that he's back at Team Penske, after everything that's happened within the last several months. You just truly cannot make this stuff up, Joe.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I feel it almost feels like a sense like a fast one has been pulled on everyone that, hey, look, we're going to make this change. We're going to clean up. Now he's back. He doesn't have that president title, but how much influence is he going to have that organization? Imagine having somebody that was your CEO, the president of your organization. Oh, they're coming back, but in a little bit of a different role. They're still going to have a lot of pull on that organization. If there's one thing that at least, if I was an IndyCar owner, I feel a little better because of the scandal of last year. We now have an independent officiating body that is here. That's one big difference from last year. Still, as an IndyCar owner, I would not be thrilled about this news. How much notice did the IndyCar teams receive? Because they have been surprisingly quiet. I would have anticipated somebody, maybe a racing driver in IndyCar, to say something about this, because the optics does not look good. The perception looks like a fast one has been pulled on the IndyCar teams. We got caught. Well, we'll fire them, supposedly. We're going to make the change to essentially prove to the IndyCar teams we're going to make sure this doesn't happen again. And then we're going to bring him back at another capacity. At the end of the day, Scott McLaughlin is still a really great driver. Cindric, a great team principal, engineer, all those behind-the-scenes role. And Team Penske is always Penske perfect. They're always going to be hard to beat. They're going to be one of the top contenders to beat. I'm just hoping this does not rub people thinking that, oh, Scott McLaughlin got this win because Cindric's there. And I'm starting to question it. I think this is just another one of those moves where, again, IndyCar is just sort of, what are we exactly doing here? I mean, I get it. Hey, he has the record here. We should bring him back. But not even 12 months later, he's back already. I'm just sort of surprised it's been pretty silent from the other teams and drivers.
Now, with you, it's confusing me why he's sort of back, and I don't know, but he's a good strategist. He's got a lot of experience in the sport, and to be fair, if Flavio Briatore can come back, anybody can coming into it.
Chris Horner back to Red Bull.
Oh, God, no. The latest news, actually, on that, before we go on to our third story, is that what I've been saying on this program throughout the last 6-7 months or so, it is true. Christian Horner is trying to get a consortium to buy into the Alpine team to become team principal alongside Flavio Briatore. So they'll be working together. So that is true. It's just like finally everyone else picked up on what I've been saying for the past 7 months. I feel like I'm shouting into a void. Honestly, it's like I got the scoop that Vettel was retiring early. I got the scoop about what's happening with the Williams cars. I got about the shakedowns. Got the scoop about everything. Just come on, just listen to me. I know what's going on. And it has been quite an American-heavy program tonight as well. So we should switch it back up and go down under. And let's talk Australia. The Repco Supercars Championship has announced a revamped broadcast team for the upcoming 2026 season. Now, after completely retiring from racing, Garth Tander will become the lead analyst in the booth. Endurance drivers James Courtney and Mark Widderbottom will support Tander in commentary. Play-by-play duties will be shared by 3 different people of Chad Newland, Matt Nordley, and Richard Kroll. Now, according to Supercars, they wanted to form a new rotation with a dedicated roster for each lead commentator for the sprint rounds before a shared rotation for the Enduros. Now, this style of commentary aligns Supercars with a broadcast setup that's been used in Formula One. After being the voice of Supercars for the longest time, Neil Crompton was offered a reduced role for 2026, but he decided to decline the offer and move on politely. Now, Mark Scaife will continue to be involved with Fox Sports coverage of supercars, while Mark Larkin will be back in his role as technical storyteller. Now, Molly Taylor will join Rihanna Creel on Pit Road. Jess Yates is set to return as the main host of the Supercars broadcast, and Craig Loudon's role will expand with an increased presence in Supercars coverage, while continuing to cover the support series and upcoming young talent. Supercars Chief Executive James Warburton said that these changes will take our great sport even further. Photo courtesy of Supercars. Clearly, a guy who is so out of touch with his fan base. I don't think a single person is happy about this. So, Kobe, starting with you, what are your thoughts on the changes to the Supercars have made on their broadcast team?
I said, James Warburton, before he, came on, as the leader of Supercars again, he was basically hinting at wanting to make changes to the broadcast, that he wanted to revamp it, and try to improve it. And I'm always the type of person, I like to wait and see something before I commentate on it. Just like last year, I know Josh, you and Matt, when it was announced that Will Buxton was going to be the new voice of IndyCar, you guys were like, oh no, that's not a good idea. But I was the one who's like, hey, I want to wait and see what Will is like first before I give my opinion on him, and I'm going to wait and see. But I will say that what I'm seeing from the Supercars fan base is that they're very fired up and unhappy. The fact that Crompo, has essentially gotten sacked as the voice of the Repco Supercars Championship. Because Neil Crompton has held this role for a very long time, and it's certainly going to feel different, in just a few weeks' time when we get the 2026 Supercars season underway, and Neil Crompton, you're not going to hear his voice on the broadcast anymore moving forward. And since Neil has been the voice of the series for the longest time, I don't blame him for for not accepting a reduced role here, because why would I want to cut down my role when I know that that in a full-time capacity that I can still get this job done. And listen to the broadcast over the years, honestly, I didn't think Neil Crompton had really fallen off as a broadcaster. I still thought he did a good job telling the story as is on every race weekend. So I'm actually quite surprised that they would move on from someone as talented as Neil Crompton. It's unfortunate that he's not going to be there, but I certainly wish the new team the best of luck moving forward. Chad Nalon has worked very hard for an opportunity like this. Very happy for him, and can't wait to see what Matt Nolte and Richard Creel is able to do as well. In this position, and I think Garth Tander, he's certainly done a good job on the broadcast over the years, and for him to becoming basically becoming the lead color commentator up in the booth. I think that'll be good for Garth. And, now that he's retired from full-time driving, he won't have to try to bounce back and forth, between his driving duties and, trying to do this in the booth. He can solely focus on the booth now. And I think, with him completely locked in, that he can, excel in that role. And I do like the idea of bringing in, James Courtney and Mark Winterbottom as well to, form a three-man booth. With Tander, whoever the lead commentator is going to be that weekend, and then we'll have Courtney and Winterbottom, joining him as well. So I think guys who are going to be endurance drivers, in that seat, is going to be good to have, their experience of, driving this Gen 3 supercar and everything that they're experiencing out on the track, because, the fans, they want to be with the current. They don't necessarily, want to, listen to a guy who's out of touch, who's been out of the game for a while, when you have guys in there who are still a part of this paddock and, still driving these cars. They're going to be able to give you, the most up-to-date information of everything going on. So I, really like the addition of those guys. And then, the rest of the commentary team, I thought Molly Taylor did a good job, last season. In the few races we saw her, glad that she's going to be moving into this full-time role. I'm also happy to see Mark Scaife continuing on with the Fox Sports coverage down under. And Larko, really love his segments, very informative. Larko, he's basically the Larry McReynolds of the Supercars Championship, given all the technical details that are happening behind the scene. But Larko does an excellent job, so I'm glad that he was retained. Have no issue with Jess Yates, coming back as the main host. And Craig Lowndes, happy to see that his role is going to increase moving forward.
Overall, it's hard when you have a beloved commentator that sort of feels like, okay, they're being pushed aside. But I understand the business aspect that, hey, we got some upcoming talent we want to highlight. And it always becomes hard when you have a situation. Do you just let the person go until they decide to hang it up? Or do you bring in the new talent to step in, give them that opportunity? So I understand where some fans may feel like, hey, this is not the right move. But if you're in that spot where it's like, hey, this is my opportunity to shine, give them that honest attempt of, okay, let's see how well you do. Don't hold it against them. I mean, they're talented people there. It's just one of those unfortunate deals where, a business decision was made and it doesn't matter the sport. We've seen it in motorsports. We've seen it in professional sports, college sports, where you have someone we love replaced by somebody that's coming up. It's just one of those deals. And I think, anybody going from full-time to a reduced role will most likely say, no, thank you. Very thoughtful, but no, thank you. Overall, it's going to be interesting to see what happens going forward with the Supercar Series, because some of the iconic calls from the Bathurst 1000 and other races will live on. This team's going to have some big shoes to fill, and overall, wishing them the best of luck. Like anybody, we love to see people get new opportunities here and there. You got big shoes to fill. Wishing the best of luck, and hopefully a good Supercar season, which is starting not too long from now.
No, the season's really sneaking up on us at the moment, isn't it? It's quite exciting to see. Okay, right, he's not with us tonight, but next up, it's Matt White with the latest from the Grid EPI update.
Let's bring you up to speed then with what's been happening in the Asian Le Mans Series over the last couple of weeks while we were off air last week and this weekend just gone. 2 weeks ago, they were at the Dubai Autodrome for 2 4-hour races across the weekend. Both races won overall by the CrowdStrike Racing by APR combination of George Kurtz, Malfi Jakobsen and Louis Delatraz, winning both on Saturday and on Sunday. LMP3 was won in the first race on the Saturday by Alex Bukansov, Chung Ting Cho, Henry Kubides, and Justin Blattner, Dennis Marshall and Chris Lullen were the winners in the GT category on Saturday. Kurtz, Jakobsen and Delatraz then backed that up with a win again on Sunday in the overall race and in the LMP2. LMP3 was won by Terence Woodward, Matthias Rieber and Ibrahim Badaway, and Anthony McIntosh, Parker Thompson and Dan Harper were the winners in GT. So that's what happened last weekend at Dubai. This weekend they were at Yas Marina for another couple of 4-hour races. And again, it was the CrowdStrike by APR team that came through the victors on Saturday. Kurtz, Jakobsen and Delatraz winning 3 races within the space of 7 days for that team. In LMP3, Alex Jacobi, Kevin Rabin and Paul Lanshere were the winners for CLX Motorsport. And Anthony McIntosh, Parker Thompson and Dan Harper backed up their Sunday win in Dubai with the Saturday win in Abu Dhabi. It was all changed on Sunday, a race, as you may have seen on social media, that was very much affected by a huge accident which stopped the race for quite some time in the early going. Alex Matt Schultz, Griffin Peebles and Matthias Besch came through to win the race in LMP2 and overall. In LMP3, Louis Stern, Matteo Quintarelli were the winners, and in GT it was the trio of Giacomo Petrobelli and Johnny Adam, most notably from the British GT Championship. They were joined by Kobe Powell this weekend to complete that Sunday race victory. And that's it for the Asian Le Mans Series, which always shapes the early portion of the Grid Endurance Performance Index calendar and standings. Our champions for the season in Asian Le Mans Series and booking themselves a automatic invite to the Le Mans 24 Hours in the summer. CrowdStrike Racing by APR, those 3 wins after it's a good couple of results at Sepang prior to Christmas, got them the title. So congratulations to George Kurtz, Louis Delatraz and Malfi Jakobsen. The trio of Jacobi, Rabin and Paul Lanshere were the winners for CLX Motorsport in LMP2. And Chris Lullen, Dennis Marshall and Justin Blattner came home to take the honours in the GT category. This weekend it is the Bathurst 12 Hours. Supporting it behind me on the wall as ever. It's the last race of this sort of winter portion of the Grid Endurance Performance Index before it goes on its pre-spring break before the European season kicks off. But very much looking forward to the Intercontinental GT Championship getting underway at the Mountain this weekend. And you can watch that race, as always, live and free on the GT World YouTube channel. Make sure you tune in for that at the Mountain over the weekend, along with all the action, of course, from Daytona and Rally Sweden. That's it for the Grid EPI update. The Bathurst 12 hours this weekend. We'll tell you about the winners on the show next week.
And now it's time for some more motorsports news from around the world. AM Racing will return to the NASCAR Rally Auto Parts Series this year after the sale of the team failed to materialize. Originally, Sigma Performance Services planned to take over the team back in November 2025, but the transaction wasn't finalized. As a result, AM Racing will move forward independently and compete in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. Meanwhile, Sigma Performance Services will focus on its programs in the ARCA Menard Series and late models, including moving into its new shop in North Carolina. A few days ago, AM Racing announced that Nick Sanchez will drive the number 25 Ford full-time in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. Owner SPS Joe Fair said they're working closely with AM Racing's leadership group to support a smooth transition. Graphic courtesy of AM Racing. Last Friday night, it was announced that Minnie Tyrell won Ram's Race for the Seat Challenge, earning a full-time ride with Colic Racing for the 2026 NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series season. Tyrell will drive the number 14 Ram 1500 alongside other full-time Ram drivers Daniel Dye, Brendan Butterbean Queen, and Justin Haley. The 21-year-old from Manassas, Virginia, defeated dirt racer Carson Ferguson for the final full-time seat with Colic and Ram. Although Tyrell ended up with the big prize, Ferguson won the final race of the Race for the Seat season, earning the opportunity to do a one-off race in the number 25 free agent Ram truck at Martinsville Speedway. However, for Tyrell, this is a huge opportunity of a lifetime after making a name for himself as a regular in the Cars Tour. Tyrell said he initially did the show to learn a few things, grow a bit, and see if he could hang with the other drivers, but he's grateful to win this full-time ride in the Truck Series with plans to work his tail off to make everyone proud. Graphic courtesy of Colic Racing. In addition, here are Colic Racing's driver crew chief pairs for the 2026 Craftsman Truck Series season. In the number 10 Ram 1500, Daniel Dye will be paired with Dan Stillman. Brendan Butterbean Queen will work with Eddie Pardue in the number 12 Ram. Bruce Cook will lead the number 14 Ram team with Race for the Seat winner Minnie Tyrell. Justin Haley's crew chief will be Mike Hillman Jr., who will be atop the box to lead the number 16 Ram team. Last but not least, the number 25 Ram, which will be the free agent truck, will be led by crew chief Alex Yantz, who will work with multiple drivers throughout the 2026 season, starting with Tony Stewart at Daytona. Graphic courtesy of Colic Racing. Alice Buckley will compete in the Dunlop Super 2 Series full-time this year. Buckley will drive the number 50 Holden Commodore for her family-owned team with support from Matt Stone Racing. She's set to become the fourth driver in Super 2 history. The fourth female driver in Super 2 history to run full-time in the series, joining Ellie Morrow, Renee Gracie, and Leanne Ferrier. Last year, Buckley had a breakout season as one of the most talented young female drivers in Australia. She became the first woman to win a race in the TA2 Muscle Car Series after going to victory lane at Queensland. 2 months after that, she won a TA2 Tag Team Enduro race, also at Queensland, with co-driver Tim Slade. At the end of the year, she became the first female champion of the Toyota Gazoo race in Australia's Scholarship Series. Now, with the step up to Super 2, Buckley sets her sights on becoming the first full-time female driver in the Repco Supercars Championship since Simona Di Silvestro in 2019. And a quick note and reminder on Simona Di Silvestro, she's currently competing in a Winter Olympic Games, so be sure to watch Simona as she participates as an Olympian. Team owner Matt Stone said this program is all about creating the right environment for driver development, with the goals of giving Buckley the best platform to grow and succeed in Super 2 and beyond. Photo courtesy of Supercars. The TGR Haas F1 team confirmed that Jack Doohan will be one of his reserve drivers for the 2026 Formula One season after losing his seat with Alpine following last year's Miami Grand Prix. Doohan is getting another lifeline to remain involved in the F1 paddock. Doohan becomes the second reserve driver for Haas, joining Ryo Hirakawa. Before getting this role, it was initially believed that Doohan would compete in Super Formula full-time, but that opportunity disappeared after crashing 3 different times in the Degner corner at Suzuka during off-season testing. However, according to the race, that embarrassing episode isn't the reason why Doohan missed out on a seat in Super Formula. The race says funding wasn't an issue, but there were disagreements over how to make Kondo Race's number 4 Toyota more competitive. So Doohan's team decided, not finalize the deal and just do the reserve deal with Haas. And despite no Super Formula racing program like initially expected, Doohan said Haas is the ideal place to continue his F1 career, and he's eager to begin working with the team. Graphic courtesy of TGR Haas F1. And after getting the blessing of three-time Rep Cup Supercross champion Craig Lowndes, his legendary number will return to the main game this year. 2024 Supercross champion Will Brown is set to switch from the number 87 to the number 888 Ford Mustang, truly bringing back the 888 number for Red Bull Ample Racing. Lowndes used the number 888 during his 888 tenure from 2005 through 2025, so 2 decades. During Lowndes' time in the number 888, he won 58 races, 6 Bathurst 1000s, scored 130 podiums and 29 poles. Lowndes said this number is iconic to 888 and believes Brown will do a good job carrying on the legacy of the 888 number. Photo courtesy of Will Brown. Ava Dobson will compete full-time in F1 Academy this year. She'll drive for High Tech TGR with sponsorship from American Express. Last year, the 17-year-old American made her F1 Academy debut on a wildcard entry at Miami. She also ran full-time in the GB4 championship, and her main highlight was earning a podium at Donington Park. Dobson says she's honored to be selected to compete in the series and represent American Express. Graphic courtesy of F1 Academy. Peyton Westcott, another American driver, will compete in F1 Academy full-time this season. Westcott will represent Mercedes in the all-female racing series as a driver for Prema, whose feature is still up in the air. She'll complete a dual program and combine her F1 Academy efforts with Italian F4, making her F1 Academy debut last year in that wildcard entry at Las Vegas. Westcott earned an impressive 6th-place finish in Race 1 in Sin City. Westcott said she's looking forward to learning new tracks throughout the season and continuing to grow her skill set on and off the track. Graphic courtesy of F1 Academy. Garrett Mitchell, better known as Cletus McFarland, will attempt to make his NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series debut this Friday night at Daytona International Speedway. McFarland will drive the number 4 Chevrolet for Nice Motorsports with sponsorship from Black Rifle Coffee Company. The YouTuber turned race car driver joins a star-studded lineup, for Nice Motorsports at Daytona, which includes teammates Andreas Perez, Travis Pastrana, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. McFarland tested at Rockingham Speedway, I believe it was yesterday, to get approval from NASCAR to make his truck series debut on a 2.5 mile super speedway, and he ended up passing that test with flying colors, got the approval he needed. So McFarland said he's been lucky to drive a lot of really cool stuff, but running a truck at Daytona will be a whole new level. Graphic courtesy of Nice Motorsports. Spire Motorsports re-signed Carson Hocevar to a lengthy multi-year contract extension to continue driving for them in the NASCAR Cup Series. Hocevar will remain behind the wheel of the number 77 Chevrolet, signing a long-term deal that goes into the 2030s. He'll also compete in 13 Craftsman Truck Series races this year, driving Spire's number 77 Chevrolet Silverado. In addition to racing the team's dirt late model and entering super late model races on asphalt. 23-year-old driver from Michigan has shown tremendous potential so far in his Cup Series career, despite ruffling so many fellows with Cup Series veterans. Team co-owner Jeff Dickerson called it a big moment for the company to lock Hocevar down on a long-term deal, but acknowledged this could test the effectiveness of his blood pressure medication, so he told his doctor that his dosage might need to be adjusted, but he believes it'll all be worth it in the end if Carson pans out and turns into the driver we all think he can be. Graphic courtesy of Spire Motorsports. 2311 racing development driver Corey Heim is scheduled to enter 12 races this year in the NASCAR Cup Series. A 2025 Craftsman Truck Series champion will drive the number 67 Toyota with Booty Barker serving as his crew chief. Heim's first attempted race of the year will be this weekend's Daytona 500. He'll have to race his way in because he's in an open car. His other races will be the Kansas Spring Race, Texas Coca-Cola 600, Nashville, San Diego, Chicagoland, Indianapolis, Daytona Summer Race, Southern 500, Charlotte Fall Race, and the season finale at Homestead. 2311 also announced that Heim will run select truck races with Tricon Garage, and they'll look for opportunities to add more races to his cup schedule as they see fit. Team co-owner Denny Hamlin said they're continuing to stick to their plan and taking a long-term approach to make sure Heim's fully prepared when it's time to go full-time cup racing. Graphic courtesy of 2311 Racing. RFK owner and driver Brad Keselowski has been cleared to compete in this weekend's Daytona 500 on December 18th. Keselowski suffered a broken leg while on a skiing trip with his family and had surgery to fix the injury. Since then, the 2012 NASCAR Cup Series champion has been working very hard in rehab and regaining strength in his leg. On Monday, he participated in a medical evaluation and on-track session at Charlotte Motor Speedway, in which he passed with flying colors to earn approval to compete in the Great American Race. Keselowski said knowing what Daytona means and how hard it would have been to miss it, being real fit to race made the moment even bigger. Graphic courtesy of RFK Racing. Kyle Busch will return to the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series this season in an 8-race schedule. Busch will be back with Spire Motorsports riding a number 7 Chevrolet Silverado with sponsorship from HendrickCars.com. He'll compete at Echo Park, Bristol, Texas, Dover, Charlotte, Nashville, North Wilkesboro, and Richmond. Busch said he's fortunate to have a lot of wins at the tracks on his 2026 truck schedule and hopes to add tracks that he hasn't won at in trucks to his win list. Graphic courtesy of Spire Motorsports. The Cadillac Formula One team unveiled its new livery for its debut season in Formula One. As you can see there on your screen, it has a striking white and black livery that was unveiled to a global audience through a national TV advertising spot, during the Super Bowl and in San Francisco, and with the number of viewers exceeding over 130 million. It was the perfect opportunity for Cadillac to debut to debut its livery on the world stage like this. And shortly after this commercial appeared on television, there was a replica of the first Cadillac F1 car that was unveiled, in Times Square in New York City, which is the busiest destination in the United States. And they were able to give fans a front row seat of the new livery that's going to represent General Motors on the world stage. Dan Towers, the CEO of TWG Motorsports, he said this livery represents more than just a paint scheme. It represents who we are and what we want to bring to Formula One. He added that every detail is intentional, bold, modern, and unmistakably American, while representing the heritage and precision that define the sport. He said that choosing to reveal their first race livery during the Super Bowl in the heart of Times Square, is a way to introduce the Cadillac's identity to the world at the intersection of performance, culture, and entertainment, and to connect with fans in places far beyond the paddock. Graphic courtesy of Cadillac F1. And those are all of the stories and headlines from the last 2 weeks. So now I'm going to turn over to Joe for everyone's favorite game, Pick a Winner.
Pick a Winner is here, and this is the first big weekend of 2026. The leaderboard, 3 people with 1 point each. We have 6 points available this weekend, 6 different races. You have Formula E with 2 races at Jeddah for the Jeddah E-Prix. NASCAR, the duels at Daytona, so that's 2 races, and of course the Daytona 500, a 3rd race. And then World Rally Championship, Rally Sweden. That is 6 points up on the line. So comment if you're watching us, who you think is going to win each of those races. Remember, with the rules, the picks are locked once the race starts. So I would highly encourage, especially with the duels, once we know those starting lineups, you may want to then make your NASCAR duels pick. And of course, during the Daytona 500 pre-race show, we'll be on the air Sunday, noon Eastern. But let's go ahead, Josh, get started up with World Rally Championship, Kobe, World Rally Championship, Rally Sweden. They're racing in the snow. We know Oliver Solberg wants to make it 2 in a row. Do you believe that's going to happen?
Yes, I do, Joe. I'm gonna go with Oliver Solberg to win Rally Sweden. It's just been so amazing to see what he's been able to do in limited start so far. In World Rally Championship with Toyota Gazoo Racing, and I feel like that this was a young rally racer who just needed a chance to show what he could do in great equipment. And so far, he's passed all the tests with flying colors, and we've been wondering who's going to be that new face of the series. And I know it's still very early on, but if he keeps this form up, Oliver Solberg might just be the guy to beat. Usually I go with someone like a Sebastian Ogier to win an event like this, but I'm going to be on the Solberg train. I think Oliver Solberg gets the job done in Rally Sweden. Before I hand it back over to you, Joe, going to read these quick comments from Adam right quick. You're saying, do you like the new Supercars commentary team? You say yes and no. You're going to miss Neil Crompton and Mark Scaife in the booth together, but you're happy to see Mark Larkham and others returning. You also said you enjoyed Rams race for the seat. And you mentioned Greg Biffle was in a small portion of one of the last episodes. So yeah, Adam, it was interesting watching race for the seat. It's a huge opportunity for Manny Tyrell, coming from the Cars Tour. You're just a local short track racer. And now he gets the opportunity to race at the World Center race and this Friday night under the lights at Daytona. Sure, a lot of people, in Virginia, across the Carolinas in the short track community in the Cars Tour garage, they're going to be rooting for Manny Tyrell to have a really good season for Ram and Colleague in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. And yes, it was very touching, seeing Greg Biffle talking to all of the contestants on this show, during his final weeks of life. Yeah, and that was definitely quite an emotional episode there in Rams Race for the Seat.
That was quite emotional. When it comes to World Rally Championship Sweden, 2 for 2, I'm going to go Oliver Solberg. Home country, unless the pressure gets to him, I don't see why he can't be the person to beat. Now, Formula E, Jeddah E-Prix, race 1. Myself, Kobe, and Josh will be making predictions for that. I'll kick it off. I think I'm going to go with the driver that I feel has the confidence and now says he's the winningest driver. Give me Mitch Evans. Who do you have, Kobe?
I think this is going to be tough, because there have been, several drivers who have emerged as contenders early on in the season. Give me one of the Andretti TWG drivers. I think I'll go with Jake Dennis to take race 1 in Jeddah. Who you have, Josh?
That's a good pick, actually. I'm going to go with the man who is on form, the champion, Nick Cassidy. I think he's going to go well here. He's got a good car underneath him, and Jeddah is he just go well at, so I'm going with him. Well,
3 different picks for Formula E. I almost feel if nobody scores, the Wheel of Destiny has to come back for Formula E. Of course, we encourage everyone, be sure to comment with who you think is going to win each race. You got to the drop of the green flag. Pretty much everyone's going to be in the top 10. So 1 point for your first correct guess throughout the weekend. Just remember, the leaders only have 1 point each. 2 right, and you could be potentially leading, pick a winner. Still very early, so be sure to participate, and we'll be posting reminders across social media at Grid Network TV. I'll throw it back over to Josh as we go ahead and wrap up this program.
Thanks, Joe. So, taking a look at our upcoming schedule. Sunday, Grid Live pre-race is at noon Eastern for the 68th running of the NASCAR Cup Series Daytona 500. Sunday night, Grid Live wrap-up is 90 minutes after the Great American Race. And of course, with Grid Uncles, Ben Schneider and Brandon Crossley taking their final bow at the end of last season, a new 1-hour program hits the airwaves in its place on Monday evenings. Tune in to Grid's Rising pilot episode next Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern for coverage of the rising motorsport stars of tomorrow. What a beautiful graphic that is as well. So a brand new show coming up as well for Grid Rising. Now, to do that, you can please do continue to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you like what you saw tonight, you can send us a YouTube super chat to show your appreciation. We've now passed 1,700 subscribers and help us reach our next milestone of 2,000 subscribers. You can hit the bell icon to get notifications so you'll always know when we go on the air, and follow all of our social media platforms and visit gridnetworktv.com. Adam said he's picking winners for WR Rally Sweden, Oliver Solberg. Formula E, Jeddah Race 1, Nick Cassidy. Race 2, Jake Dennis. You've gone picking Race 2 early. Adam, I hope you're not locked in on that, because that might change with how crazy it is with it being a double charge up race. And to keep a touch of everything here, you can hit the bell icon to get notifications so you'll always know when we go on the air, and follow our social media platforms and visit gridnetworktv.com. You can take 5 minutes to invest in the Grid Network through Patreon. You can join Colin, Mark, Tashelle, Robin, David, Matthew, Crystal, and our newest Patreon subscriber of Nico, who all invest in the Grid Network each month. And we encourage you to join these great groups that keep us on the air all year long. And once we hit $500 per month, we can afford to send our team to the chat more often and continue growing our media outlet. The link to all of this is in the video description below. And if you want to make a one-time donation, you can click on the Buy Me a Coffee link, get your name on the board, invest as much as you want, and consider buying you your favorite on-air personality a cup of coffee, and they will thank you on the air. Well, for Kobe Lambeth and Joe Samiego, I'm Joshua Birch from JB Motorsports. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.